Hey folks, Ike Eastman here with Eastmans. Today on this gear review, I want to talk Montana Knife Company, MKC. If you have been living under a rock, you probably haven't heard of them. However, they're a company, a fairly new company that has come on board with us as well as in the hunting industry, making some of the best knives out there. I had the opportunity to sit down with Josh Smith, who is a master blacksmith bladesman. Now, what does that take? On my podcast, Eastman's Hunting Journal Podcast Edition, I sit down with Josh and we discuss not only what it takes to be a master bladesman, but also how he was the youngest to ever do it.
So master, you said you're master smith when you're 19. What does that mean? For the guys that are not in this, which is most of my audience, what does that mean?
Yeah. I joined the American Bladesmith Society when I was 12, and to become a master smith, you have to join the American Bladesmith Society and be an apprentice for 3 years.
Under
a knife maker. Yeah. And you can do it in your own shop, but you have to be, essentially you're a paying member, but you know, they assume you're learning from somebody. Especially back then, there was no YouTube or internet.
Right.
If you were learning to make knives, it was probably from a person.
Right.
That's definitely different these days. But once you're an apprentice for 3 years, you can test for your journeyman. And the way that works is you first have to make a performance blade first, and it has to chop a 1-inch rope in half, which just shows that you can make a blade that's sharp in one chop. Then you have to chop 2 2x4s in half, and it still has to shave. And as many chops as you want, you know, you hack through it like you're using a hatchet.
Right.
And it still shaves. And what that shows is that you have the control over your heat treat, that you can make a blade that you know, if you're hitting knots in the wood or whatever, that your edge isn't going to chip out or deform. And you chose a steel and you heat treated it correctly to where it held an edge long enough to do all that and still have an edge. And then you have to take that same blade and bend it in a vise 90 degrees without breaking it.
And that's just for your journeyman.
That's just the performance portion of your journeyman.
Wow.
And so what that shows by being able to bend that blade is it shows now you have control over your heat treat, and you didn't make the blade too hard, it would have snapped. You didn't make it too soft, it would have bent up in the 2x4. And then when you're done with that, you have to take 5 knives and present them to a panel of judges in Atlanta, Georgia, and the master smith judges, and they judge the fit and finish of your knives. How nice are they? How well did you construct those knives? And so I did that when I was 15. And then you have to be a journeyman at least 2 years before you can test for master. I was in school and whatnot, and I wasn't ready when I was 17. So when I was 19, I tested, and I did the mastersmith portion. It's the same test, but you have to do it with a Damascus steel blade, 300 layers of Damascus. Do the performance part again with that blade. And then you present 5 knives again. One of them has to be a Quillian dagger, which is just a really difficult knife to make. It's easy to screw up. And they judge you more harshly. Yeah, it's a dagger blade. It's a 10-inch dagger.
Okay.
It's a double edge.
Okay.
It has to be symmetrical. That's the thing about a dagger. So, hey, it's cool you did it to one side. Now do it to the other and make it the same.
Same. Yeah. Duplicate it.
Yeah. And so I did all that and passed that when I was 19. And I always say, like, it's a really cool thing. And it was definitely an accomplishment. Was I a master at 19? Like, no. I mean, I don't think you can be a master of anything when you're 19. And quite honestly, even today, like, there's so much more I want to learn and do on the custom knife side.
He is hand designing all of these knives himself. Now, this is the Speedgoat. This is one of my favorite knives. It's the lightweight Cerakote version. There's also a stainless steel version of this. If you want to know more about that, check out the review in Eastman's Hunting Journals of 2023, and Brandon Mason does a really good job walking through exactly what is about this. Now, in talking with Josh, I learned some cool stuff. Number one, paracord. There's 6 foot of paracord here in case you need it for whatever it is. The other cool thing is this is super light, but extremely durable. People go, yeah, but why a fixed blade versus an open? It's really personal preference. Now, one thing that you can do with these is you can use them really, really roughly. One of the things that he told me in this podcast is talks about the difference between the angle of the sharpening edge as well as how the steel is hardened versus it being hard but not brittle. He talks through that whole thing. I also have in my repertoire, which is the Blackfoot. This is the signature series knife that he first came out with is the Blackfoot. They're all very, very sharp. Do not just go throw it on any sharpener, because you will eventually get it there, but most blades are either 22 or maybe even a little less than 17.
So you say control your steel, or control your heat. Walk us through what does controlling your heat mean?
Well, knowing your heat treat. So knowing, okay, this is the alloy steel I have. So now I have to know how to heat treat that. So what temperature do I need to take that steel to?
Because every steel is different.
Every steel is a bit different. And what temp does it need to get to? How do I measure that temperature? Without going way too hot and kind of burning up the steel? And then what do I need to quench that blade into to harden it? Is it water? Is it oil? What kind of oil? And what temperature does the oil need to be? And then also, once you do that, that blade is too hard. Once it's quenched, it's like a piece of glass.
Okay.
And so that's when they say, like, hey, temper your attitude, right? Bring it down, right? So that blade's too hard. You need to temper that blade. And when people say, like, hey, what do you temper your blades at? A lot of times they mean heat treat and how are you heat treating?
Yeah.
But a temper is actually a part of the heat treating process. So you have to temper that blade. So you put that blade, say, at 400 degrees in the oven twice or 3 times for an hour. You take the Rockwell hardness from 67 or 8, to 58 or 60. Okay. And so what that does, it's an inverse scale. If a blade is super high Rockwell, it's a low toughness. And what toughness is like that flexibility, that give that it has when you pry on it.
Okay.
Right? So really hard, not very tough. So if we heat that thing up to like 400 degrees and you start bringing the hardness down, the toughness starts to rise. And now what we want to do is we want to find this nice balance where, hey, it's still hard enough to put up to a knot in a piece of wood or to hit up against a bone in an elk and not bend the edge, not leave a dent.
Right.
But if it's too hard and you hit that bone, the edge might chip out.
Okay.
Right? So we want to bring that down, and now we have that nice balance. Now, if I'm making you a bushcraft knife, I don't care as much about how long the edge will hold, like you would as an elk hunter. You want it to, like, hey, I want to get through this whole elk, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm more worried about, like, I'm going to be prying with this knife, right? So our Speedgoat or our Blackfoot, those aren't made to be pry bars. I'm more interested in, like, can you get through an elk? Can you get through a couple deer or whatever with that blade?
At 17, it gives you the ability to cut wood. It also gets you the ability to carve with it. Now this angle is unique because it allows you to skin, gut, as well as cape. It's got a great point for caping. And if you are nervous about sharpening, you can send it back to them and they'll hand sharpen it as many times as you want. There's a guarantee on these knives. They will replace it as long as you're not doing anything crazy like, I don't know, cutting rocks. They'll replace it if you break it. They'll help you sharpen it if you dull it. Montana Knife Company is come on the scenes, and they have come on with a vengeance. They are unbelievable blades. This one's really light. They have a ton of different options. Now, when they go drop them, now this is unique. What they do is they build, let's say, an X amount of knives, and then they drop them for sale at midnight on a certain day. You have to get there. We're one of the first to do it because they sell out within hours. So Montana knives are made in Montana, little town called Frenchtown, Montana. Josh and his crew hand put all this stuff together. They're hand designed, plus look at these cool boxes. This is all done by hand. It's got an instruction manual for the Blackfoot 2.0. It says the blade length is 2 3/4, or total 2 3/4. Blade length 3.5. Blade thickness is 0.114. It's 3.6 ounces for the blade weight. It's 100% made in the U.S. Bunch of other really cool facts on their knives, which you can look at online. But look how they're packaged. Comes with a little bit of paracord, cool knife for the coffee cup, and they're hand wrapped, just a slight special touch. Now this one has Cerakoted blade, but it also has the synthetic wood handle. So it's a little different than this one. They both come with a pretty cool sheath. It's just neat how they put the special touches, just that little added special touch from Montana for your Montana knife. So make sure you check out their website, Montana Knife. They also have pretty cool accessories like sharpeners, blade holsters, different types of handles, wood handles to the, obviously the paracord, this light one for backpacking. So check it out, Montana Knife Company online. Also for gear reviews just like this, smash that notification, ring that bell, because what happens is we do hundreds of gear reviews on gear just like this, or backpacks, boots, you name it, stuff that you would use in the field that we have actually found to be useful for you as a hunter, and we go through the options and the offerings, as well as some of the cool things we like and some of the things that we are a little nervous about. So check them out, eastmans.com, check out our YouTube page, and make sure you check out Montana Knives.